Welcome back. I'm going to talk about crypto. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin today. And I'm going to talk about how it's going to be powering the future. And it already is. It's already here. It's been around for over 10 years. And it has, I got involved in it back in 2020. So I started investing in it, excuse me, because I could see that there was a need and a demand for another asset class. And when I got into it, 2020, wrote it up through 2021, opened up a business, made a pretty significant amount of money through it. And I thought, well, wow, this is really fantastic. I've made a lot more money than I've made in my prior like almost 30 years of business. At that point, I think I'd been in business, 2020, like 25 years of business. So I just, I bought maybe 20 different coins and maybe put, $10,000 a piece on each coin, something like that. And just started, riding it up and didn't touch it. And as things really ballooned around 2021 into early 2022, I started looking at this and doing a significant amount of research on my own about like, what is this? This is ridiculous. And a lot of people have made a lot of money at this. So, I started getting behind the scenes and contacting some of the projects and having conversations with some of the developers and trying to find out like where is this heading? Where's this going? And then also simple things like moving crypto from exchanges to my wallet, from what's the difference between hot storage and cold storage? What's the difference between moving it from wallet to wallet? What's the taxation? So I'm looking at it from business aspect. And again, like I have all this capital and I'm like, nah, I need to do something with this because this is something I don't want to have in my personal name. I want to be able to put this inside of a company. I want to be able to protect it, whatever it is. So I just started looking at it as a business. What is staking? What is the difference between proof of work, proof of stakes? Like all the stuff that's already out there. But I was looking at it from a completely different aspect because I already had a lot of experience already in business and knew what it took to make a lot, make money. It takes a lifetime, and it takes perseverance and normal business. And I could see that there were a lot of people that were coming into this wealth and they don't know what to do with it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to really dig into this more and see what I can do as a passive income stream. If I do trade it, what are the repercussions of that? And so on. Basically, every nuance of it. And I wanted to know about it because it was exciting. It was like, you've been given this gift and it's like, what are you going to do with that? Right. So I just plugged in my experience and it's led me to this. It's led me to having conversations with other people and thinking like, well, we can go ahead and put this on a platform because as I contact people that are in business or managing this new asset class, we're all learning. And there isn't, I've also found out on the college level that colleges aren't teaching any of this, not yet. We know of I've got a personal contact at Duke University, and Duke is finally adding crypto to their phone's going off, their graduate program. So not in general studies, but to the graduate program. So that's on Duke level. Now I know on the Ivy League level, they've been pretty heavy into it. In fact, when you look into a lot of these crypto projects, you're going to find that most of the big time heavy hitter projects or people that are associated in some of the other distant projects have Ivy League backgrounds, that they were either developed at MIT or Stanford or something like that. It's going to have some sort of not that MIT's Ivy League, but you know what I'm saying. Like it has a DARPA is also behind it. The Department of Homeland Security. You'll start to find like, well, wait a minute, like if this is some fluke, some flash in the pan, how did this get started? And the thing that really drove me it kind of really into hyperdrive on it was that when I started using the coins as a mechanism to like exercise the system. So for example, There's a coin Ethereum. So Ethereum is what they're called ERC20 token. So Ethereum is an ecosystem. So underneath Ethereum are a number of other coins. You might have heard of like Shiba Inu or uh, Polygon, Loopering, uh, Energy Web token. There's just a ton of them. Anyway, in order for them to work, they use Ethereum. They use Ethereum's blockchain in order for them to work. And inside of that are other ecosystems that allow for trading to happen, for loans to happen, for you name it. Essentially the same financial system that we have, but it's on a digital level, and it happens very, very quickly. Aave is another example. That's an ERC20 token. And you could go on the Aave network platform, and if you have a specific token, let's say you have USDC is also on Ethereum, so that's cash value. That's a dollar denominated coin. You can put that on there as collateral, and then you can take a loan out against it. So it's a collateralized loan. I don't have to leave my desk. I can get a collateralized loan and swap it for another coin if I wanted to, or whatever I want to do. I could swap it out to BTC, swap it out to all kinds, whatever I want. And you could do it in minutes. Like there's no kidney sample. There's no, we need to go through our underwriter. There's no, proving collateralized asset, because on the blockchain, it's proven. That's you own it. That's it. They don't care where it's coming from. It's your responsibility to be managing your taxes on this and you keeping your proper accounting. So that's because it's public. So when you talk about blockchains and the old traditional system would work on a two-party ledger. So if I go to, let's say, Lowe's and I buy a 2x4, go to the register, now I'll probably give them a $5 bill. In the old days, it'd be like $1.50 in recent past. So I have a building background. They give me a receipt. So that's a transaction. Give them the money, get the receipt. I have a receipt. They have a receipt. There's two-party. Okay. So if I want to take back that said 2x4, scan it. Here's a receipt, barcode on it. Everybody's been through it. So now it's a third party. So now imagine the same transaction, but now the third leg of this is going on the blockchain, which is public. Now it doesn't say what you bought, but it's identifying that the transaction happened. It was at this event, at this time, this day, that the money came out of this space and went into that space. Here's the wallet address from this, wallet address for that. And the power of that is significant. From a business perspective, you're talking about there's no more he said, she said. People have heard that many times. So you could argue the point. I never got a receipt. Sir, do you have your receipt? I don't have it, but I bought it here, right? Well, that's out the window, because then you could really prove that you were there. Then what's your wallet address? They have ways of now looking it up and seeing like, oh yeah, in fact, you did. So paper receipts, they're going to go bye-bye. There's not going to be need. When this system comes in, and business owners already know this, the big, large businesses already know of this technology. This is something that has been this is a planned thing. There's no question about it. And when I say that the large institutions are behind it, and when I say I was working this, what I found that if I went on to like a site like Aave, and you have to do a number of transactions, let's say, to get a loan, it all worked. Didn't matter. It didn't matter if I used it from this wallet, that wallet, wherever. If I'm bringing coins and tokens into a specific platform, and it worked. And there's another thing that you do, which is you can change chains, for example. So you can go from, like, say, an ERC20 token chain, and then you can take those same tokens and then you can put them onto the Polygon blockchain, which is its own blockchain. So it runs under Ethereum. So I have Polygon Matic on Ethereum, and I'm like, well, the transaction fees are really expensive, like $20, $30 a transaction, which is super high. It's crazy. But if I did the same type of transactions and I ran it on the Polygon chain, it cost me like $1, $1.50, something like that. And I'm like, well, that's advantageous. So how do I do that? So I started playing around with that. So to swap it from chain to chain, there's a series of sequences that you have to go through, and it worked. And not only did I put it on chain, I also took it off chain, put it back on Ethereum. Costs money, but in practicing this and using the system, that's what I said, is like it all worked. And I got to thinking, I was like, with my background and being in computerization and basically growing up with it, as a Gen Xer, I mean, the first computer we had in the house was a Texas Instruments, very rudimentary. I mean, I was playing games on it. I think I was probably in like fourth or fifth grade, something like that. And you could do the code language on it was BASIC, and you could write code on it, but it was like it didn't make any sense to me. Like, why do I need to write all this code in to tell me when the day of my birthday in 20 years from now? Oh wow, it's going to be on a Wednesday. Wow, that's so cool. And you could write all that code in there. And then my mother was a school teacher, and then next thing you know, we have she'd bring home a Commodore 64. Wow, that's the state of the art. And then the school also had the Apple Classic or the Apple II. That came home a couple times and played around on that, but it was very, very basic. It didn't really make a hell of a lot of sense to me. And then as those things continued to move up, we get into, I took business classes in high school, and we had a PC in the business in my teacher's classroom, and we used that. And it was a very rudimentary program that we had used. It was just very basic, just to kind of get your feet wet. Keyboarding classes, things like that, but it wasn't on a computer. My keyboarding class I took was on a typewriter, like an electronic typewriter with paper. So, and I graduated in '93. So from that point of this explosion of technology that's happened over the past 30 years, it's been a very wild ride as far as a human goes. Like, I just think of how these things have changed. I go into college, right? So I go to a community college, it's 93. And that's the first time that I had seen the internet. They didn't have it. They had it in a specific computer lab, but it was only for emailing. And like, you could see like weather reports. That was about it. And I remember like typing in like the weather. I grew up in an area that was very, 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 very cold. 6 months out of the year we had snow. It was Western New York, over by Lake Erie. So it was just snow country, rust belt, mega rust. So anything that had to do with, nice weather, I would want to know about it. Back in the old days, I'd pull out a USA Today, and I would look like, oh, in San Diego, it's 82 degrees. Oh, that's so good. So anyway, that was the beginning inception of that. And I don't think that was actually 93, because I was taking like some intro classes. So it might've been like, it's probably 94 probably. And I remember going to the computer lab and putting in like, what was the temperature in Honolulu, Hawaii? I was like, oh wow, it'd be so good right now. There's 3 feet of snow outside. So let me make sure my camera's working right now. And before I go any further, sometimes my camera shuts off. Hello. Everything's good. So now we're at this, as this computerization continued to explode, and, getting your first computer, getting internet. I had a computer very early. I started building computers like on the side. A friend of mine he went to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, and he lived with my wife and I at the time when I moved south, and he lived with us for about 6 months. He was doing he's working for IBM. He's still in school, but he was co-oping at IBM. So he stayed with us for like 6 months, and he brought his computer down. And since he was in college and at RIT, he was like kind of at the forefront of it, and telling me like, yeah, you can just build it, and just tell me all the parts and components to have to build it. And back then, like, parts and things were like in a catalog, and there was no internet to order it off of. Like, you had to go through a catalog and find your video card and whatever else. So I've been through the whole thing, and that's when I started like building computers. And I had a little bit of a coding background. I did take a couple of coding classes while I was in school, but excuse me, I just wasn't into it. I don't get it. I'm a handsy guy. That's why I got into building science and construction. I became a general contractor. But yeah, I mean, and through all these years in business, the toughest thing is like proving that this person says this, and that the contract says that, and that that there's a if there's a discrepancy in one person's opinion, right, that there's a problem, right? Now you have a potential legal situation, and it would happen, as time would go. Like, well, I said this and you said that, and then this is before internet, before texting, and writing things down and documenting things. And with what I did, it was really difficult to do that with everything and meeting with clients and things like that. And as things processed, I was like, there's got to be a way. The transactions that you do on large transactions, buying a car, buying a house, right? You have escrow accounts. You have somebody that's holding the money, that is deciding like, okay, I'm good for this. You good for that? Yeah. Okay. We're going to release the money. We're going to release the funds now that the title's clear. Everything is fine. And that was a really important factor in realizing that, gosh, if I could have this for every one of my business transactions, this would save a lot of headache and concern on my side, because I know what I'm going to do. If it was a remodeling project and you hired me on as a GC and general contractor, and you were going to do a new roof and, fix the siding and paint it and some of the other, whatever, rot repair, things like that, those things would be itemized out in an invoice, right? In a bill estimate. And then we would just, bill it out. And I would be very cautious with who I would work for. And it was a word of mouth type of thing. But what that did was it caused me to become very, cautious with the people that I would do work for. And if it was a new customer, and this is a pretty standard thing in business of the old way, is that you would, kind of keep it in the family, people that you knew, people that knew other people that knew other people. And that's how your business would grow organically internally, right? And that was a safer way of doing it. Now, on occasion, there would be somebody that would kind of be difficult to work for that would be coming through there, but I wasn't advertising to anyone out there. I knew that, like, when I first started off, I would take anything I could get. And I was getting like occasionally like whacked, like people would take advantage of me, because I knew that there wasn't really any way for me to recoup my money, that there'd be a reputation issue that was at stake. And being in a small town, that's something that you wouldn't do. When I moved to a larger city, I moved to Raleigh, small town to big town. I knew no one. So I was starting from scratch, and, starting networking and getting going in the beginning was slow. And I just needed to be, like I said, just trying to plod along and ensure that the people that were in those areas weren't going to take me to the cleaners. I'm going to do the work and you're going to have to pay me for it. So I started adding things into my invoicing, like down payments and things like that, and payment schedules and all kinds of things to ensure that I wasn't left holding the bag at the end of the project. Whereas where I came from the small town, I could do a project, bankroll the whole thing, do the project, get paid on a Friday, whatever, and be out of there. And everything was fine. There wasn't any concern about somebody who's going to be playing some tricks with you. So this happens on both sides of the transaction. This is the customer, and it's also the person that's doing the work. So that's even in contracting, it's in everything, that it is what they say it is, and I'm going to pay for it. So if I can have some way to mark this and have it so that everybody knows that we're doing business, I was like, wow, that would be really great. Then in comes blockchain. So Bitcoin isn't necessarily, it's not used for this, but the relative technology is in place for it. It's like that's like the foundational element of cryptographic assets is by having third-party transactional transparency. Big words. Just means that it happened. I was drunk. I don't remember it happening. I don't remember. What's your name? So everything that you do is a transaction. That's the way that you need to look at it. Every time you click at Netflix to watch whatever movie you want, that as soon as you click it on your remote, that's a transaction, because it's, even though you're not buying something, they're collecting the data and saying like, oh, this is a very popular movie. We're going to want to keep this in our database. Okay, this one will keep people coming back. Okay, that's our inventory, right? Or you go to Walmart, right? And if they can track their inventory and know in real time, because these blockchains, they settle, meaning that it's on the blockchain in like 4 seconds. Some are faster. Wouldn't it be great if you were in distribution in a business and said, "Oh, well, I'll tell this from both a business perspective and a consumer perspective." So you need, I don't know, a bottle of isopropyl alcohol, and you buy a 12-ounce bottle of isopropyl alcohol every 4 months, right? And every time you go in there and they're tracking it, so they're like, "Oh, you know what? Joe buys this alcohol. We don't know what he uses it for, but we better have it on the shelf for the guy because he needs it." And if they can track that, Walmart would be able to make sure from their distribution center that it's on the shelf. Now, I'm just using that as an example, but how many times have you gone out for that thing that you wanted to get and it's not on the shelf? This is going to be happening more as this new system comes into play and prices and things continue to rise. Businesses are going to be looking for solutions in order to curb the expenses. So before, it would take a Walmart, like, we'll just buy like, a couple of pallets of it and let it sit. And if that's sitting, they have to pay interest on it. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So if we can get the time duration down and have an expectation of what somebody's going to be buying based upon their living habits, then the costs are going to be significantly reduced, right? And that's a huge, powerful thing. Not only is it going to actually be on the shelf when you need it, but we don't have to charge as much money because we're not sure what the heck you're doing. So when people talk about transparency and invasiveness of blockchain and big brother and the government doing all this and everybody knows what I'm doing and everything else, like, I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, be like, privacy is privacy. But if I want to go buy on a business side, if I want to go buy a gallon of paint at Sherwin-Williams and I show up there and I'm ready to go do the job and they don't have it, well, that isn't any good, right? I want to go buy a bottle of olive oil, right? And I buy imported olive oil. Don't buy the stuff that's been, make sure where it comes from, that it's authentic and it only has olive oil in it because they do these blends. So if you're trying to buy olive oil and you're going to pay, it's going to be expensive. If it's coming from Spain or Italy, it's most probably olive oil and not a blend. But I want to make sure it's there, and I also want to make sure that it's not been sitting on the shelf for 2 years. You know what I mean? So that's another factor. Like, does it have a shelf life? Then it takes care of a lot of problems. It takes care of a lot of waste. That's like the main element of this. The reason why pricing is going up so high is because the amount of waste. It's ridiculous. Every business that's out there, business owners, that's all we're trying to do is just trying to minimize expense. And once you start making money, the next thing is about efficiency. Right? We want to use less fuel for our deliveries. We want to, whatever it is, this X amount of stops, whatever your business is, you're always looking to get an edge so that you don't have to just keep dumping more on the consumer, because ultimately they'll just stop buying from you because you're not running a very tight business. So, and then from a consumer side, this is great because then you're not going to have to go work a second job to go pay for your olive oil. So it's a circle of life thing that happens with efficiency, time, and technology. And as this comes into play more, we're just, like I said, we're going into this kind of renaissance period where it's going to be a fantastic time to be living because of how fast and people know of things. You go on the AIs and things like that, and you ask all these questions, whatever else, you have conversations with it, things like that, and you're like, wow, that's really great. It's coming from an unbiased opinion. So you have like this digitation of interest that comes into play. So yeah, reducing the wastes keeps the costs low, and that's ultimately what you want. So you have a better perspective on where things are going to be. Gone will be the days of businesses, going into a Black Friday and saying like, well, we need to make all of our money this week or we're toast, So that's not really a great way to run a business. That's white knuckling and trying to run retail sales on 1 week out of the year is insane. So, and that's when everybody goes out because that's when all the deals are. Well, they're like dying on the vine and they're going to sell whatever they have to, and they're going to drop pricing and whatever else in order to keep the doors open for the next year, and hopefully you come back in for more product. So it's like those games are going to be quickly evaporating. You're seeing it right in front of your eyes. It's happening. So again, going back to crypto is an element that will revolutionize business. Absolutely. Bitcoin is just what's in the title, but there's so many of them. Some are supply chain tokens. Some are notification information tokens. Imagine like your digital identification and having that all on that's stored on a blockchain, like all your passwords stored on a blockchain. It's encrypted and it's also private, but you would be able to access that. I mean, just to be able to have knowing that it was there. There's no more forgetfulness. It's on the blockchain. I was like, there's so many benefits to this. It's just off the charts. And I said it's a moment in history that is, you're living a period where I said in 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, they're going to be talking about where we were back in the 2000s and just be like, oh, I can't imagine how that was. It must have been so difficult. Everything is so automated now. And, it will be, it'll be a very interesting time as my generation becomes the grandparents and we tell these fireside chat stories of how incredibly difficult it was to run a business. So now we have some new tools that are able to vitalize and get things really pumping in business. And one of them is YouTube. YouTube is fantastic. This is a free platform. As long as they stay within their rules, they're totally cool with it. And this is a transaction. So if you clicked on this video, YouTube wants to know, hey, like, is it worth keeping this dude around? Are people going to want to listen to this guy? Oh, we need to go ahead and track this. Is he staying within the guidelines, right? And if you can have that inside of these algorithms and store it, and the storage now is not in a cloud. They don't own the server on the blockchain. It's stored on each consecutive block, like a Santa list. So every time there's a transaction, it goes to the next person that does the next transaction. And it goes on and on and on. So every time there's another transaction, it rewrites the block up to that point and then rewrites it on top of it, on top of it, on top of it. So it's like a new version. So if you have these crypto coins and you want to like stake them, for example, you want to put them and you want to make yield on them, a percentage just on sitting on your coins. And you are on something like a node, which I have a couple of nodes running. I validate the transactions on my nodes for everyone that's out there. Am I the only one that's doing it? No. One of the coins that I have, I'm like one of, 2,500 nodes on the planet of people that we're validating transactions. If my computer, I lose power, I lose internet, the node comes offline. Okay. So, but that doesn't mean that the block stops. It just keeps running. And these are the more consensus you have worldwide. That's why, like, what if we have an EMP? Well, it's not going to be everywhere. So even if you did have something like that, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to happen everywhere. So the faster that this infrastructure comes into play, whenever power comes back on and things, the Mad Max time and all that crap just stops and people get on with living life, which has always happened for all the rest of the history of humanity. You want to get back on the node and be able to get your assets, get your information, get your data. Data is going to be the new gold. The new oil is data. Think of it that way. So you would power it back on, and then you would wait you have to process these transactions, these node transactions, basically to bring you back up to speed. It's very similar like whenever you were at school, and my generation, we had chicken pox. You're out of school for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Not this getting a shot. That wasn't the way it worked. So you were out of school because of chicken pox. Now, you would send in your parents. Back then, your parents would go to school and get your assignments, and you need to do your work and stay up with the class. And since you're not in it, you don't know what the hell is going on. You could do the homework and kind of stay up with it, but you were sick and you didn't really care what was going on. And so anyway, you go back to school, and it was like you might as well have been off a planet, for 2 weeks. There was like a completely different thing that's going on, than with what you had left. And that's basically kind of how blockchain works if something goes down and you have to get back on it. So it takes you a little while to, basically kind of download your transactions of what's going on with your best friend Joe and Andy and whoever else, and them tell you all the gossip and all the tea and everything else that's going on. And it brings you back up to the current time. And that's what would happen back then. And that's the same thing that happens in blockchain. So the same thing that happens in humanity is the same thing that would happen, that does happen in blockchains. And it enables the wheel to keep turning, because if there is a problem somewhere, which again, we live on a planet that there's problems everywhere, we don't have control of all that. So instead of beating your head against the wall, just say like, okay, this is the way it kind of works here. So what's the workaround? Workaround is to be able to have not one centralized location for these transactions to be coming out of. Imagine like an Amazon, if like Amazon having, all the transactions they do, and they store everything on a file storage, and something happens. I was part of this, where you would have the old days before they had cloud storage. You had storage that would be on your local machine, your computer. So no, they'd use mainframes would be the conversation, the language they'd use back then. But it'd be stored on your local computer. You get the blue screen of death, and the hard drive's wiped out. Like there's corruption or something, you couldn't get any information. And around 2003, I started another business. I opened up another company, and I was having, I had already run through this with another company where we had QuickBooks, my QuickBooks file. Like that was the one thing that I had backups for. So I'd rewrite them to CD. I had multiple backups. It was a pain in the neck. And I had a friend of mine that had Small Business Server 2003. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to have my own server. I'm going to set up my emails and everything through this. I'll get them on this one. Smartphones just came out. I'm going to have it on my smartphone. I can have it at my desktop. I can have it wherever I want. If I go on vacation, I'm going to get all of my emails. They didn't have that back then. You had to do, this is 20 years ago. They didn't have it. It wasn't like, get my email. You could get it off of AOL or Google or something like that, but people weren't using them for business. They weren't using it in that effect for business. And we wanted to retain all of our information and files and everything else, whether it was QuickBooks files, customer logs, things like that. And if my computer goes down, I want to be able to have it. I want a redundancy. So I had my local computer that had the storage. I had the server that had the storage. And then my server also had a clone drive. So if that drive went down, I had another drive that had it. So I had a triple redundancy inside of my business. This is in 2003. So now you're talking blockchain. Now we're in cloud technology, which is good. But if something happens with the cloud, you're toast. You're absolute toast. Now in blockchain, when this starts coming online and you can store this material, your data on a blockchain, you won't lose it. It is a done deal. It's going to be fantastic. And the more and more storage that comes in, it's going to be required that we need to have more and more and more data. So we're going to need to be able to compress that data, store the data, but have it where the transaction, as a business owner, I'd be like, why do I want to have to pay for all this cloud storage of somebody that I did business with, 5 or 6 years ago, but I got to keep it. I need it for taxation in case I get audited or something. I've got to have that data. So I was like, wow, if I have it inside of a blockchain, it's only the one single transaction of putting it on the blockchain that costs me. I don't have to keep it up because the consensus is keeping it up. It's always there. So if I have a transaction that was whatever today, all right, and I store in a specific data entry that's in it, then that's it. I make one payment. That's a transaction. So if it costs me $1.50, that's it. I don't have to maintain it, because if it's on one of these blockchains, then the next time that somebody else does a transaction, which will be like in a couple of seconds, they're going to rewrite it, and I'm on the SANA list up at the top, and then their transactions underneath it, and then so on and so on and so on and so on. So if I went back and said, oh my gosh, I need to have the data from 5 years ago, this is in the future, and I go back and say, I need to have this data. Where is it? Oh, it's on the blockchain. Do you have the transaction? Here's the transaction. I can go back through. It was in this such and such date. Boom, 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 done. Ding. That's where the technology is going. That's super powerful. So the cost from a business perspective is going to be way less to store all this information. I said, it's going to be out of control exponentially. And then people they'll just automatically migrate into the blockchain storage world, and it'll be great. So I'm going to close the video out because I could talk. I get really excited about it because of how arduous this has been over the past 30 years. I have been like every other business owner that's out there, or even from the consumer side. It is and has been, it's been a real job. And now I've, uh, I've just gotten to the point where I'm ready for something new that works better. Okay. And that's the state of where we're in right now. And people don't like change. At the end of the day, um, change is difficult just because it's what you knew. It's like cognitive dissonance, 101. And no matter how difficult the old way was, if I went from today, what I know today, and how I run my business today, keep track of everything, and I went back 30 years ago, and told myself, hey, this is going to be great. You're going to do this and this and that and that and that. But you're going to have to do this whole laundry list of things. Every time that you log into this device that you don't use, this computer, you're going to have to do a two-party authentication. And then when you do that two-party authentication, you're going to have to go to your phone. Oh yeah, on the phone, it's a $1,200 phone that you're going to have to carry with you all the time. You mean I don't pick up the phone? Like, no, 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 no. It's going to be like in your pocket. Like mobile phones now, only it's going to be like really, really great. And you're like, why do I need to spend $1,200 on the phone? Why do I need to do two-party authentication? What is the new future like? Well, there's lots of pirates and stuff out there, so this keeps everything secure. So anyway, the list would go on and on, on and on and on and on and on. So if you're not up with the times now, just imagine what's going to be happening over the next 5 to 10 years. It's like if you're just underneath a rock, you might as well live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and go get yourself a horse and a buggy, because that's essentially where we're at right now. And I think people need to understand that that's a good thing. As long as you're like current and relevant, then you're going to be able to keep moving on. You won't be our generation knew them as baby boomers. But then as they got to that point where they started kind of aging out and things just continued to keep ramping out. Now I know a lot of people that are older and they're up with technology and everything else. So they don't really fit the whole boomer meme. But guess what? You Gen Xers, just like me, that's your road. That's the road you're going to be on. Now, if you're a millennial, all right, you're younger than me. Like, hey, yeah, right. The world's your oyster. Great. But guess what? If you don't keep up on this crap, you're going to get steamrolled. Absolutely. Because there's plenty other jurisdictions out there because this new system is international. This is not in the jurisdiction of the United States only. So if you don't stay up on this and it's some third world country, then these people are just dying to be able to go make something of themselves. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to make something of themselves. They don't care how many hoops they have to jump through, because at least they have a hoop to jump through. That's it. So that's what happens. As history processes, that's always what happens. There's always a changing of the guard. The people get complacent. They go ahead and they change the directive to another jurisdiction, finally give somebody a chance. And that's what they're saying right now. They're running around in bare feet and they're running to their grass huts and sleep with no air conditioning. They're probably thinking it's great. And they're like, well, hey, you know what? I'd like to be able to, go to a Beyonce concert, but I don't have any money and I have no way to see it. That's probably a bad analogy, but you see what I'm saying? Like they want to be able to have a chance. Give me a chance. And when you push somebody down or hold somebody down, it's like a rubber band. It's like just imagine like a spring that's going to take off. And it's so exciting for the new ones. When the new ones come in, that's when things blow up. And if you're going to sit back on your heels and be, fat, dumb American and think that we're just always going to be at the top, you're going to be sorely mistaken. This is going to it's going to rip your face off. Absolutely. So this new economy is going to it is global. It is here, and it's going to go really fast. And if you don't wake up, yeah, you're going to be, I don't know what they're going to call the Gen Xers that are just a little slow. They're going to have it'll be some funny meme, and then the next ones behind that will be the millennials that aren't up to speed. It'll be funny to see what those are, those memes. So, all right, I'm going to end it here, and thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Cheers.